Hey everyone! Welcome back to my channel. I'm Dreamscript. This is the Rough Cut Diamond Mines, the place I go to find the rough ideas that we can then maybe turn into something a little more polished, and boy was that true with this prompt, because this is the one where I fully hit the wall with this challenge. This is the 8th day of the Cursed Relics challenge, and if you guys have been keeping up with this series, you'll remember the past few videos I've been mentioning I started struggling a little bit with the prompts and started running a little low on the creative juices. Well, this is the one I completely ran out on. And if you were following with the Instagram posting at this time, this was the one that completely stalled me to the point I had to switch to an entirely different theme for an entire month. I genuinely do not know why I struggled with this one so much, but nothing was happening. And I mean nothing. For weeks, I could not come up with an idea for this prompt that made any sense or would look anything other than boring. And sure, not everything in the world has to look like it came out of a Soulsborne game, or something to that ilk, but I truly had nothing. And with these speed draws and stories, I don't want you guys to come out of these videos feeling like it was a pointless waste of your time. I want to give you something at least a little entertaining. God, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me explain what I mean by taking you to the prompt list. As you can see, the prompt that was causing all this difficulty was Jade. Jade is a type of mineral that is well known for its beautiful shade of green, although there are also white and yellow variations, and has a long history of use, especially in many Asian cultures. It's a stone typically associated with nobility and wealth. It's actually even called the Jewel of Heaven, which shouldn't surprise anybody familiar with Chinese mythology and especially tales about the Jade Emperor. And for some reason that I no longer remember, I decided to pair it with this stupid sticker. Yes, that is a Cyclops eye in a jar. I don't know if you can see it great in the picture here, but on the sticker itself, that little label on it notes that it's 100 years old. Whether that means how long the eye has been pickling in the jar, or how old the Cyclops was at the time, I don't know, but hey, it's a fun detail. At this point, I didn't have any ideas where to go with this prompt, so I decided to grab my curse severity to see if it helped anything. Spin the wheel and show 'em. It's deadly. And fast! No! This thing is an instant death sentence. It's that stab of a blade through the heart, a bullet to the head, cyanide pill hitting the system. It is swift, unstoppable, and unavoidable. There is no drama with this type of curse except to those that surround it. There's no time for anything to develop because this thing just flat out kills you! This is the worst category of curse I could have been working with for this prompt. And are you starting to see where the problems started coming up with this one? I gave myself the most uninteresting base shape to work with, and it has to be the single most deadly thing I've yet come up with. For the life of me, I could not figure out a way to make it work in any way. I considered possibly doing kind of an open geo design so I could make it look like Leech's open mouth, but minimal amount of research taught me that Jade doesn't develop that way, so that's a no-go. Jade is a stone that develops in like slabs, so it tends to be pretty smooth. It's not naturally jagged like a crystal can be. Now, was I making this a lot harder on myself than I needed to? Yes. Could I have just picked another sticker to pair with this prompt? Also yes. Did I do that? No, of course not. Eventually, I got so worked up about this stupid prompt that I had to step away from this challenge. I needed some time to think about something other than these cursed relics, since I was already starting to run low on creativity for them. So I did. I took that step back, worked on a couple of other things for a while. Relax and recharge for a little bit. Trying to force myself to be creative wasn't going to help this. And finally, I was able to come up with some design and idea that I didn't immediately hate and could develop more. Obviously, it's the coloring and story that are going to be doing the serious heavy lifting with this one, but we'll get there. For now, let's get to actually making this cursed artifact. So to explain what I finally landed on for this mix of weird traits, I have a quick question first. How many people here have ever heard of Grimish? No, not the one from McDonald's. For those who never have, I'm talking about Grimish One-Eye, the patron god of the orcs in the Forgotten Realms of D&D. He is usually depicted as a violent, bloodthirsty god that would see the world come to the heel of orcs, and as his title would suggest, only has one eye. Now, there are variations on whether he only ever had one eye or if he had two and lost one before gaining this title. And if you're anything like me and like to think way too hard about what happens to the things fictional gods have lost, coupled with the sticker that I went with, I decided that the second option was more interesting. Like, seriously, body parts of gods have such interesting implications, and in real life mythology, almost always seems to have something to do with shaping how the world works or was made in some way. In Norse mythology, all the realms were created by the various bodily functions and later the actual pieces of the first god. In Greek mythology, there are several times when gods, or even demigods, are torn apart but are able to recover from the pieces if given the proper time and care. Blood from gods and monsters is also said to give rise to creatures like when the winged horse Pegasus is born of the blood of the Gorgon Medusa. I could go on and on here, but the gist of it is that a god losing an eye would be a big deal in its own mythology, especially a god that is known for battle, bloodlust, and, well, if you'll pardon the pun, an eye for an eye mentality. So having the lost eye of this particular orc god become an incredibly deadly item actually works here. And since I don't think the color of Grimish's eyes are ever said outright, at least not that I could find, there's nothing to say that this isn't how the gem came to be in the world of the Forgotten Realms. It's a fantasy world, after all. Have fun. But the thing that irritates me most about this entire prompt is just how quickly I finished it once I had a concept. All this time worrying about this stupid thing, and once I was about to nail down an idea for how to make all the elements work together, worrying about writing the story to make sure it made sense, and it wasn't just lame garbage, and the art itself I was able to whip up in under 2 hours. And I don't even hate the picture. Whatever. That's just the way it is sometimes. But, whatever. For now, we move on. We're done with the art. We're getting done with the art piece. Let me tell you the story of this damn thing. Enjoy.
Being born a runt is rarely considered a good thing. But being born a runt as a half-orc, that was normally considered a death sentence. The only thing that kept Flint alive in his early life was that his mother happened to be an elven woman whose culture didn't consider being physically smaller and thinner a weakness. She merely ensured that his orcish aggression was channeled through the more delicate art of blade work and precision striking. Strength means nothing if you cannot strike first. That was his mother's favorite saying. And as he grew up into easily the most notorious career thief in the Forgotten Realms, Shadowhead of the local Thieves Guild and renowned for his unmatched skills for using common household blades such as sewing needles in assassinations, it's safe to say he may have taken his mother's words a little too much to heart. But even if he took things a little overboard, no one could argue the results. His was a guild spoken of with both awe by his peers and contempt from local law enforcements that knew what he was, but because of how carefully he worked his guild, could never touch him. On the rare occasions he was behind bars, it lasted barely a day before he was out again, usually thanks to his own skills. But then came the day when his skills were really put to the test, and the heritage he normally thought nothing of ended up saving his skin. A cult had submitted a request to have a protected relic recovered from the local temple's vault. And among the notes of their request, they specifically requested that the person recovering the relic be someone of orcish descent. An uncommon request, and oddly specific to be sure, which is how he even ended up hearing about it in the first place. Orcs were not known for their stealth after all, so there weren't many orcish rogues in the guild beside himself. And this request put a heavy emphasis on the importance of the item's recovery, which he found interesting. And once he saw what the item in question was, his interest was even more pronounced. A relic that boasted to be the lost eye of Grimish One-Eye. The stories that he'd heard about the item told of a sphere that had seen the rise and fall of the universe with the War of the Gods, one that dripped with malice and hatred for all forms of life. Except for orcs, the only ones safe from the effects of the relic. And so the request for an orcish person recovering the relic suddenly made more sense, and that became the reason why he accepted to do the job himself. The night that he went to collect the relic was a moonless one. The less natural light that cannot be easily controlled, the better. Being able to change the lighting of a room was a key element to any good theft. Knock out a couple guards and prop them up in a lazy position in a dark room, everyone just assumes that they decided to take a nap and won't be on high alert to potential thieves in the area, making a job much easier. He easily slipped through all the gaps between the temple guards and into the vault where the relic was apparently being stored. His lockpicks make short work of the vault's door, and he slipped inside without so much as a whine from the hinges. The relic was kept to the back, deep into the vault, either to keep its apparent power from leaking out, or to make his job a little more difficult. Not that it mattered as he zeroed in on the relic in question. A sphere no larger than a normal humanoid's eye, suspended in a jar of some thick, viscous liquid. A liquid he didn't want to try just sticking his hand in. The way his blade hissed like it was dipped in acid when he tested it was all he needed to be sure of that. So how to get the relic out? He could take the jar whole, but it was a large and bulky item, the glass of it thick and probably enchanted and thus incredibly easy to scry on. If he could just take the sphere, no one could even tell he was carrying it without searching his person. Between the two options, Flint knew which one he would prefer. And if there was one thing he had learned in his years as a career criminal, it was that sometimes adding a little drama to the situation was usually the key to success. So the idea of throwing the jar full of thick acidic goo at the door of the vault with a loud smash was certainly an odd one to entertain. But the sudden panic and scrambling of the guards it caused in the temple could not be understated. The fact that it freed the sphere from the jar was just a bonus as far as he was concerned. Funny thing about panicking guards is that they're actually less likely to be following the protocols that are put in place to make a thief's job harder. So with panicking guards and the relic already in hand, Flint was able to make his way up to the roof for his grand dramatic escape. There was already a rope and grappling hook up there waiting for him and everything. Also waiting on him was his backup, the only other half-orc in his guild. Young and upcoming, with possibly too much fire in their blood to really be suited for the thieving elements of a rogue life. He would have preferred to bring somebody with more experience, but given the nature of the relic, he decided it was safer to go with this kid. They were already pulling out daggers as if they were eager to cut down some guards before Flint pulled them away, reminding them bodies didn't always need to be left when pulling a job. Kids these days were too bloodthirsty. Perhaps they should direct this one more towards the assassinations than thieving. He tossed the grappling hook to another building, it landing and catching securely on the edge of a rooftop overhead. Flint grinned to himself. This was always his favorite part of the job. Beside him, he noticed the kid was starting to hyperventilate about something. They were getting pale and shaky. Thinking it nothing more than nerves, Flint pushed the kid to take the rope and swing away first. The kid's eyes were going out of focus as they gripped the rope, and even Flint can hear their heart pounding erratically. No. Wait. That wasn't their heart. That sounded more like war drums. Flint looked down at his pocket where he'd stashed the sphere and could see the energy coming off of it, even through the pouch. His eyes widened as he stared at the building energy and then back at his fellow rogue. The kid looked like they were going to throw up. Were they being affected by the sphere? But they were also a half-orc, weren't they? Why would they? The kid doubled over in pain, almost as if they themselves had been stabbed, and with their precarious position on the roof's edge, The movement sent them tumbling over. Flint reached out for the rope they were still clutching, trying to stop their fall. But the rope snapped. It had clearly been tampered with to break that easy. Flint stared over the edge as the kid fell, but as the blood sprayed out of their mouth before they even hit the ground, he knew they were already dead. The thud and crack of bones when they hit the ground probably wasn't even felt, their eyes already glazing over, and their form changing, revealing the truth. They were actually a changeling, and one that looked much older than the half-orc form they had been wearing. The sphere must have seen right through that disguise, and acted accordingly. Staring down at the body, Flint suddenly remembered one of his mother's other sayings. Even among thieves, it's best to always be yourself, for the lies always come out in the end. It's done. It's finally done. Thank you everyone for watching this far into the video, and for those that were following on Instagram at the time, thank you for your patience waiting for this prompt. Hopefully next time the prompt won't give me as much trouble, but more of these speed draws are coming, so I'll see you all next time. Until then, sweet dreams, and here's to all the little things that bring out the magic in you.